Hi folks, Chris Martin here. We're up to fall of 1904 in our recap of the World Diplomacy Championships at Weaselmoot in Chicago. And for this video I want to start out by following Doug Moore. When you play a lot of diplomacy, as I've said, you get to a point in some games where you know you're not going to win. And then you have to adjust your expectations. Now Doug is an excellent player, he's a former world champion. Let's take a look at his negotiations and see what he's decided his goals are now. Since he knows he probably isn't going to win from here, what is he going to try and accomplish? Because although he doesn't have as many pieces to move as everybody else anymore, he still has all of the considerable force of his diplomacy.
This is the point in the game where you have a pissed off player.
Understood. You need just don't cut Denmark.
Why would I cut Denmark? Why would I attack you guys? I'm not attacking you guys. I am going after Russia because Russia screwed my game over. You have a vengeful player. You should take advantage of it.
Well, there you go. Doug is a vengeful player. He's going to be going after Russia because Russia screwed his game over. Let's take a look at how that plays out in another one of Doug's conversations.
I'm in Kiel in Berlin. And Baltimore. What do you want to know?
Well, I want to get someone sweet. Well, you don't have to give it.
I don't have to do anything. He's like, don't tap it. He's like, don't tap it. I might even ever tap it. No, all right. I mean, you guys will have dots in the backyard. So, I could support Berlin, could support Munich to some extent, then support Germany, and I'll have, that should work, right? They have one, they have brands now,
but he might. If all Peter is doing is what Goffy tells him, and Goffy's going to tell him what that guy is.
So, here we see Doug and Nathan plotting, figuring out what the best moves are. And you see there's that still that shared frustration about Adam that Nathan is continuing to cultivate, thinking that's going to pay off for him eventually, even more maybe than it already has. But Doug is focused on doing what is best to get Nathan's position forward, and that means defending Munich, even though Munich is currently still his center. Nathan's in it, but he's talking about how best to defend it against an Italian-Austrian attack. And Nathan seems pretty sure that Peter is going to do whatever Goff tells him to do. Keep that in mind as we go a little bit later. This one requires just a little setup. Before I got there with the camera, Chris Brand tells Doug that, hey, Dave Miletsky in Turkey is offering to support me against Peter. What do you think? Should I take that support or should I just kill him? And that's when we join the conversation. Here we go.
Yes. Do you want to win the world championships? Yeah. Do what he says. That is the right. Who has you in Turkey? You in Turkey. You can sit there and beat each other up, or you can take it somewhere and maybe grow 2 or 3 this year. Next year. Well, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And, yeah, that sounds a little optimistic.
Okay, so Doug is giving advice, and he's saying there's no reason for you and Turkey to fight down there when Dave is willing to adjust his expectations and help make you the world champion. Let's now turn to Peter Jürgen in Austria, somebody who's been on the ropes, but he's not out of it yet. I had a chance to catch up with Peter. Let's hear what he's aiming for right now, and then we'll kick right into a look at him talking to Nathan Barnes, trying to get some pressure on Chris Brand in the Mediterranean.
I'm just trying to stay alive. I think if I can get another season of staying alive, I might at least have a solid shot at being in the mix.
Do you need anything in the north? I need to disable silver.
Okay, alright. Well, you make the decision. I need Italy to have some pressure soon. So
Yeah, no, it's good.
For you.
Absolutely.
Are you working with silver? I guess you're kind of. You're kind of
Does anyone
designated.
work with silver?
Right, yeah.
So Peter is very conscious of the fact that he's still at risk. He's not out of it yet. If he can stay alive a little bit longer, maybe get another build, another unit on the board, he thinks he can turn this around. In talking to Nathan, though, you see that Nathan isn't giving him a whole lot. He isn't really talking to him much, so that Munich doesn't come up. And when Peter says, hey, I need to have some pressure put on Chris Brand in Italy. And are you working with Silverman? Nathan's like, yeah, well, does anybody really work with Silverman? So that's interesting. Let's follow Peter now as he goes back for a long conversation with Chris Brand in Italy and Andrew Goff in Russia. The three of them are working together this season, in theory, like they did last season, in theory, to try and resolve the Turkish situation and advance on Germany.
So, Nathan asked me not to do anything with what he allowed me because he wanted more flexibility. I don't know if we give him more flexibility or we...
Oh, well, that's easy then. We can keep you honest with Nathan and still make progress here.
What I told him was Bohemia's doing whatever Goffy tells him to do. I didn't lie to him. So.
You get me a good role there and support Ulysses.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That gets me out of Ulysses for you.
I was assuming you wanted Bohemia to support Ulysses, but that's going to... You're going to drop down from this stuff? Okay. Of course. Dude, I didn't do this to now lie to you.
No, I know.
Even though you deserve it.
It could be forgotten.
Even though you deserve it. I mean, not supporting you in Constantinople.
No argument.
I want to deal with, like, Dave first.
So, what is the point of having three-party talks in this kind of situation? We do have the three of them all theoretically working together to get up to the German line, but how is that going to help any one of them win the World Championships of Diplomacy or to win any game of diplomacy? There are a couple of things that are worth considering. The first is that when you have two parties that have had some conflict, the way Austria and Italy have had, having a third party present in the negotiations has a kind of implicit effect that they will be the arbiter, and if one person stabs the other person, they will back them up. So if Chris Brand kept attacking Peter in the situation, as Chris said, I think in the spring, then that would make Andrew happy, and that would make Andrew do things that were bad for Italy. Similarly, if Peter takes this opportunity by knowing what Chris Brand's orders are going to be, in theory, to stab him and get some of his dots back, the presumption is that Chris Brand and Andrew Goff would then work together against him. If you look at the map here, though, you can see that Peter's position is very precarious. And if he doesn't keep this triple sort of aligned, Andrew and Chris have the position to take him apart very easily. So he not only has to get through this phase, where they move on Turkey, he also has to get them moving in the other direction, so that they are out of his hair. So part of that is the move of Galicia to Silesia. Making sure that that happens is really good for him. It gets a Russian army off of his home centers and moving in another direction. Doug deciding that Andrew is the problem is really good for Peter. But then there's Chris. And as you saw Peter try to get Nathan involved with Chris, Peter is going to try and get Chris involved in attacking Nathan. Let's see that. It gets a little tricky tactically as these three players really work to consider the possibilities.
What I am going to try to, I guess, you're free to, I don't need to touch base anymore. And you hold us to do
Maybe two. Or do I?
or to this.
Do I do that now? Or do I wait until I've got move two of them or two ideas? I do both in this week.
If Ionian's just sitting there and away, he's getting a build. Is he going to be stuck in my side? He's not in my side. Then you try and run to the fleet.
Yeah, because if Ionian holds, he's going to know he's going to build the fleet anyway. If you can get him to do that.
I don't think he'll do that.
I don't think either. I'll just let you in G.
Are you in Greece? Yes. He's just going to Greece.
I'll bounce you in G.
He's going to
I'll just hold you.
I'll bounce the
You do whatever you want to do. I think I'll bounce because if you let him into a G, technically he would walk on the smear and I would walk on con, but I don't think we trust that. Let's just guarantee it out, right?
You don't want to take it. Oh, because he's just going to bounce.
Let him into a G and then walk back.
Again, and a fucking again, and again. Because why wouldn't he?
I would say do what you're thinking. So if you're confident he's going to G and bounce it, we can
Almost do need another unit. Turkey.
to finish him off.
Oh no, you can just shift on out to
Once he's down to 2, there's no reason to actually, you're not. You're inflexible. I'll survive now. You got to pressure him. That's what you
I got 99 problems. Black Sea's not one of
So
them.
you getting into Aegean's not two. You actually.
So Peter does not succeed in getting Chris to move the fleet in the Ionian towards France. Chris Brand doesn't want to telegraph that he's thinking about making such a move and, tip his hand so that Nathan would build a fleet in the fall in Marseille, because he's going to have a build coming from Munich. And in fact, they've kind of talked themselves into the idea that having another fleet in the Turkish theater is maybe not a bad idea anyway. Well, one of the things that we know, though, is that Chris Brand is entertaining offers from Dave Miletsky to work with him to take Peter's dots. So the last thing that Chris wants to do is move that fleet out of the Ionian. He has the advantage of knowing what Dave Miletsky is going to do. I mean, and you saw Peter's reaction when Chris suggested that he'd bounce with Dave in the Aegean. He was dismissive that David would do that, but Chris knows what David's going to do. There's just one more conversation we need to hear before we can look at the orders for the fall of 1904, and that's the one between Nathan in France and Chris in Italy. How have they managed to keep this non-aggression pact going for so long, and what's going to happen now that they're adjacent to each other in Munich? Let's listen to that, and then we'll kick into the moves.
So what do you think? How do you win this game?
Keep growing.
Keep growing.
Keep growing and don't make any enemies. Honestly, I mean, I think it's worth it. We both know what happens if you start crashing.
Right. So
We both know that, yes, one of us might make a lucky guess sooner or later.
What about me?
What about me?
Where is going there? Are you supporting Peter in it? What's happening?
I'm not supporting Peter in it. I have been asked to order that.
Also not an answer.
Problem for you?
Yeah, it would be a problem.
Okay.
I want to be able to do something, polish up dogs. I want to. But
So you want me to domesticate it?
yeah, I think that's how a détente works.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I guess.
I guess.
No.
What's your concern?
Oh, I don't piss off my allies in the East.
And how do you win if you don't piss anybody off? That is an exciting answer, Chris. That's an exciting answer.
I'm not a person who knows how to win a World WDC Championship, sorry. I don't think you are either. But...
Okay. It would be really nice if you weren't poking bear for him to get it.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to do this.
No.
Just
Okay.
don't be a total toady.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, that is the most Chris Brand has talked in the entire time we've had a video camera on him. And it's easy to see why. This is the relationship that he has to keep control of. If Nathan takes his fleet in the Mid-Atlantic Ocean, takes his fleet in the English Channel, and swings them south, at the same time that Chris is committing to plow into Peter, that's going to mess him up. He's going to have to turn everything around. It's going to be just like Doug throwing himself at Andrew Goff before Andrew gets a chance to get any of Peter's centers. So that's all the negotiation we're going to look at here in the fall. Let's move right to the order reading and find out what happened.
Denmark supports Holland, Norwegian to Norway, Norway to Sweden, Denmark supports Norway to Sweden. Now to Spain, South Coast, English Channel to Mao, Belgium supports Holland, Ruhr and Bohemia support Munich.
Bohemia.
Or Burgundy, sorry.
I like writing Peter's orders.
Khan unordered, Ionian to Aegean, Tiroli to Munich, Venice supports Trieste. Baltic convoys Kiel to Prussia, Holland holds, Kiel to Prussia, Berlin supports Kiel to Prussia.
Did Holland move to Kiel?
No, Holland held.
Oh, good.
Livonia to Prussia,
Supported it.
Galicia to Silesia, Rome supports Bow, Sev to Black, Sweden to Baltic, Moscow to Livonia.
Well, Romania did what?
Bohemia supports Galicia to Silesia, Bulgaria supports Constantinople,
Wait. Oh, yeah, okay, got it.
Serbia to Trieste, Vienna to Trieste, Greece supports Bulgaria.
That's a nice set of orders.
Ank to black, Smee to Ank.
Smee to what?
Aegean, sorry.
I can read it from here.
So to sum it up, France moves south. The triple in the east stays together. There is a bounce in the Aegean, and Doug succeeds in convoying into Prussia, leaving Andrew Goff in Russia with the single retreat as England dislodges him from Sweden. What did he decide to do?
Why the only retreat?
So Andrew takes the retreat back to the Gulf of Bothnia. And we're going to go ahead and pick up the winter and find out what the builds and removals were in our next video, when we will also catch up with the spring of 1905.